Hello. Do you like my decorative boxes in the corner? I'm back. I didn't expect to be back this soon, but we're back. I was looking at, the reason I'm doing this, I was looking at the Ko-Fi October challenge thing about creative joy, and I felt like I won't, my default would be to make a blog post on it, but I felt that something like creative joy deserved a bit more pizzazz, almost. So here we are. I have basically like cue cards, but this is mostly gonna be me rambling. So good luck getting any solid content out of this, future me. But I figured I would start with, when did I start creating? So I have been drawing for a very long time. I have been drawing basically since I could hold a pencil, maybe later, 4 or 5, I would say, with confidence. With confidence, I have evidence. I have a SpongeBob drawing. Put it here. I made that when I was a kid. 4 or 5, actually. So, I was drawing when I was 4 or 5, and the drawings that I did in elementary school had much more of a story element to them than my drawings kind of do now. And I think that's just because I hadn't really figured out that I also wanted to write. So it's what I had that made sense, that I was already doing, and I just combined them. Sorry, there's something over there that I think it's just a shadow, but I keep staring at it. Anyway, in elementary school, I had a friend, she was my best friend at the time, and she taught me a lot about how to draw anime. I don't think I would have figured out what anime was that young if it weren't for her. And so I had someone that was also doing art, that was really excited about art, and then we both liked Warrior Cats. And don't come at me for being a Warrior Cats kid. What I'm saying here is that I feel like the reason that's cool to me is that we made our own characters, we made our own configurations of the clans, and I had a discussion with someone in a Discord server recently. It made me realize that that was my first attempt at a story. It was with somebody, and it was a role-playing kind of configuration, but it was still a story. There was still something that we were telling. And our characters died, and our characters came back, and there was a chosen one arc going on, and it was a bunch of stuff like that. It was little kid logic, but it was easily, I could say that was my first story. When I was growing up, when they asked you at school, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said artist, every time I said artist. And so art was very pivotal to me. I have a creative mom who paints she still paints, creative aunts. My grandma might have been, but don't quote me on that one. I didn't know my grandma super well. I'll go back to that artist thing in a minute, the saying I wanted to be an artist in class. I'll go back to that. And then in middle school and high school, I was going through transitions, I was moving around a lot. Art was a way for me to work through what I was feeling without actually doing anything. Art was it was the way that I coped with stuff. And then in high school, I had dabbled in writing in like middle school and the beginning of high school, but then later high school, I was in a creative writing elective class. And that was the first time that I also started viewing writing as a way to cope with everything that I was experiencing. And it was a really fun class. And then I made something a bit too personal and I got grounded. And so I didn't really write. I didn't really share my writing because there wasn't anything to share because I wasn't really writing. But then I went to college and I wrote basically every day. Writing was how I dealt with being in a new place, not having personal space because you're in the dorms, and so that means you're stuck with a roommate 24/7 basically, dealing with no friends. Like, I had friends, but having no friends and then immediately having friends and then making more friends, but I didn't really want more friends, circumstantial friends and all that stuff. And then not really making friends in my classes, and then my boyfriend at the time cheated on me, and that was my first like big relationship. And then COVID. And then sophomore year, and it was just a bunch of stuff that was all just, and the entire time I was writing. I was drawing, but I draw less now than I write, because writing, it's way easier for me to just get it on the page, and it's way easier for me to not worry about it looking nice. The concept of you can edit the writing later is way easier for me to grasp than you can edit the sketch later, the drawing later. Like, it's not quite as easy for me to do. So it was a huge coping mechanism that has turned into a habit. And I think it's probably one of the only like firm habits that I have, other than like brushing my teeth, which I would say is less of a habit because some mornings I forget to brush my teeth until I check my habit tracker. That's a whole other thing. Why am I rambling about that? Anyway, it was a way for me to experiment with creativity easier. Writing was just, you take out your computer and you type things, or it doesn't even have to be your computer. You take out your iPad, you take out your phone, you take out a piece of paper, and you write words. I don't know if it's clinically what this would be labeled as this, but I kind of jokingly labeled it as the maladaptive daydreaming. I did that. And so I had all these worlds up here, but I couldn't get them down on paper quite right, and the art, I couldn't do it as quickly as I wanted to, but writing I can do quickly. I can turn out words, or at least then, because I didn't care about quality as much, I would turn out words super fast and it would just go. And there was a lot of power in that for me, and then being able to create all these worlds was like, whoa, I'm doing a thing, wah! So that's where I've been, and that's where I am now. And what I mean by important, I don't mean like that I didn't care about it before, that it didn't matter. Like, of course it mattered, but it's a way that I feel fulfilled. It's now not just like I'm doing it because of this innate drive, because I've always had this innate drive, you know. I feel like a lot of creators, they have an innate drive to put things down. The process became enjoyable, especially for writing. I struggle with this a bit more with art, just because art has become more of like a, oh, you post it on social media and you're supposed to get likes and you're supposed to blah blah blah. So I feel like that kind of skewed my chances of art being as fulfilling as writing. Not that it can't become more fulfilling, but I have to work to make it that way, whereas writing, I don't feel that. I feel like writing is already like, it's there. And I didn't expect myself to be so like obsessed with the idea that maybe younger me wasn't wrong when she said, oh, I want to be an artist when I grow up. I don't think that's necessarily changed. I think just what art can encompass has changed. An artist was an incomplete description, but only because at the time it wasn't really like content creation. It wasn't really like oh, you can create many things. I am still the little kid standing there going, I want to be an artist when I grow up. But I also want to be a writer. I also want to work on YouTube more. I also want to stream more. What creating means has changed. And the process has changed, but at the same time, it's still a little kid going, this is fun. This is just what I do, and it's fun, and I get to make things, and I get to use my crayons that have the sparkles in them, and I actually have sparkly crayons around here somewhere. Wait a second. Oh, here are my neon crayons. Here are my, skin color crayons. Here are my colors of kindness crayons. This one's really beat up. I think I put it in when I used to be an RBT. I used to be an RBT, by the way. Did you know that? Probably not. When I sat with this topic of creative joy, I made these little bullet points. And I sat there and I was like, creating isn't always joyous. And that there's still joy in it, even if it's not always joyous. And that's the part I wanted to go out on, which I think is true. But the more I sat with it, because I did that a couple days ago, and I was sitting with it and I was like, even in the BS that you have to deal with sometimes, in the stuff of, you have to worry about the numbers, and I've seen videos on YouTube that are like, if you want to make it in the art world, don't make selfish art. You have to make art that other people will like. Maybe if you're just not me, that's true. But for me, that's where the joy is. Some parts of the process suck. Like sometimes I sit there and I'm sketching and I'm sketching and I'm sketching and I've sketched the same thing 10 times and it doesn't look right. I'm looking at you, test commission, that I won't talk about here, but you will soon see on my socials. I'm talking about that full body part of that test commission. I sat there for like 15 minutes and I just staring. That wasn't even sketching. And I could not figure out. And then I had to resize, and then I had to resize, and then I had to resize, and I had to, But I'm still making something I want to make. I think there is joy in the fact that you do something, even if you hate it, even if you don't like the end product. I think there's joy in the fact that at the end, you make something and you get to then play with the thing you just made. I think with art, it's a bit tougher because art, then you unleash your inner critic and you're like, oh, everyone's gonna see everything wrong with this and it's gonna blah, 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 and it's gonna blah, 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 blah. But you get to look at your first draft and you get to play with your first draft and you get to say, okay, I loved this part. Okay, this part wasn't quite it, but maybe if the setting were different, or maybe if it was a different story, or maybe if this happened before that happened, then maybe it would make more sense. And I think that process, I think there is a lot of joy in that. I don't think we are necessarily the only creatures that can create. You watch animals paint with their little paws. It's very cute, like the raccoons. So I don't think it's that we're the only ones that can be creative, but I think the scope with which we have, the scope in which we can create is wild. And I think there is so much joy in just being able to. I think society has kind of shifted or kind of tainted the idea of creativity because you start looking at social media and you think you have to create things every single day, all of the time. You have to be this powerhouse. You have to be this content creation machine in order to be successful. And I think that has kind of skewed the idea of creativity, even for me. At least for me, not even for me. I'm not special. If you look past all that and you look at just creativity as itself, there is a lot of power in it, no matter what you're doing. And I've kind of lost my point, but hopefully this makes any sort of sense at all. Future Vel is gonna have to figure that out. Because I have no idea. I'm sitting here and I'm just winging it. And that was the point. Like even this, I like these because I get to ramble and I love rambling, and maybe I can get myself to focus on the topic, but maybe I can't. And so then I have to creatively come up with how to stitch this together and make it make sense. And the challenge of that is fun. And I think that's part of it too. Creativity. I watched a video on creativity recently, so I'm kind of like, I got a bit of a different perspective after I wrote my script. Or my script. How creativity flourishes in constraints. If you hand someone a blank piece of paper, it's harder to work with than if you hand them a blank piece of paper and then say, draw me a dog. Part of the joy in creativity as well, for me, is making challenges out of things, making things fun, making things differently. I have this self-portrait I did when I must have been 17 or 18. It was like mid to late high school. That I posted on social media, but I'll also include it in here. That was so fun because I just want to do like a geometric thing. And I decided I'd draw me. And then I had to take a glue gun home for an assignment. It was some physics, we had to build a little thing. And I was like, how can I include the glue gun? How can I include Sharpie? How can I include the different kinds of Sharpie? Not just Sharpie. I want to include like the metallic oil Sharpie. I want to include this other marker that has no business being in this bag, but it's a thing. And that kind of like, how can I include this? I feel like is so fun. And I have kind of sometimes I have lost that. Constantly finding the next thing to give creative joy is a challenge, but once you find it, that's it. Because I have to constantly keep, because of I don't know if it's my ADHD or I'm just, but I have to constantly keep finding the next thing that is exciting about creating. That means trying new things. That means trying dumb things. That means trying things that you look at it and you're like, this probably isn't gonna work, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And just constantly doing the next thing. I have no clue if this is gonna end up being literally anything. It's gonna be a rambling mess, but there will be something good, I'm sure, somewhere for someone. I'm getting deep and philosophical and asking you the questions. What brings you creative joy? What brings you the greatest joyous of the joys of the Thanks for watching my ramble. Again, this was inspired by the Ko-Fi October challenge about creative joy, so you can check out my Ko-Fi in the description. I have commission listings. I'm working on making a new one, specifically, well, aimed towards writers, but anyone can use it. I don't know if this is any good, but we are here, so yes, good. But yeah.